Here a little bit, maybe give you a little bit better background. Today, you can see the beautiful lake in the background of Kuala Lumpur, and I am in Kuala Lumpur for 2 months, and a lot of people kind of like don't know how to classify me. Are you an expat? Are you a nomad? I like to refer to myself as a global expat. I'm definitely not the traditional digital nomad. Which we'll talk about in a moment. But I figured we'd talk about maybe some of the differences between a nomad and an expat. And to be honest with you, there are shades of gray. There are people that do this type of long-term travel different, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I hear those terms thrown around a lot. So I figured I would discuss what I think the differences are and the little nuances between the two. So the first, and by the way, after we discuss the difference between an expat and a nomad, we'll jump into a Q&A that can involve questions about being a nomad, being an expat, but also about anything else related to travel and the types of travel I've done, which are traveling traveling internationally, living in a country a month or two at a time, living in an RV. I traveled in a van for a year throughout the United States. Traveled on a motorcycle throughout Thailand, and I lived on cruise ships last year for a year, hopping from cruise ship to cruise ship. So whatever travel topic you want to discuss, we'll jump into after we talk about today's topic of discussion. Okay, so nomads and expat lifestyles are both like global lifestyles. They're lifestyles outside of your home country, where you grew up at, where you lived at, where you raised a family at, all that kind of stuff, right? Where the place that you associate as your nationality, but they're a little bit different. Nomad is a little bit more transient, and an expat's a little bit more permanent. So let's talk about kind of the differences. So a nomad, and the term digital nomad, which has been coined for someone who works online and became really popular even before COVID, when working at home, working digitally became kind of like a normal thing. There was a whole group of people, a whole class of people that had figured out how to earn their income in their home country, but work anywhere in the world. It was a lot of IT professionals, marketing people, computer programmers, graphic designers, stuff like that. And it created this whole like niche group of people. And I think like the godfather of that group was a guy named Johnny FD, who just happens to be a friend of mine now. But it's kind of how I discovered this world and wanted to join this world, was by researching and watching YouTube videos of all the digital nomads. My friends Beer for Breakfast are one of them as well, and Remote Darren, a ton of different people. But the digital nomad is a lot more transient. They're basically chasing the Wi-Fi. They're moving from location to location, sometimes based on the weather, based on cultural experiences they want. But the digital nomad is continuing to work from a central location. Now, there are nuances of nomad. I think I'm more of a nomad, not a digital nomad. But for the nomad, home is basically wherever their laptop is, and they prefer short-term rentals and like search out for places with amazing co-working spaces, a coffee culture, cafes, kind of like Chiang Mai, Thailand, and that kind of stuff. And they prefer like mobility to permanence. Where an expat, there are really like a lot of these are nuanced, but an expat goes to a country on a more permanent basis for different reasons. Maybe their company has a position there for them, so they work for a multinational company. Maybe they're out of the US, but they go to Japan for 3 years to work in the corporate office in Japan. And they are more likely to establish deeper roots in a place, in a specific country, and they're seeking out more stable living conditions, kind of similar to the way they had back home, but just in a different location. And like I said, it can be for many different reasons. One of them is work. Another one is retirement. A lot of people in the United States retire. They want to live somewhere, a lot of times for financial reasons, that has a lower cost of living but a high quality of life. Like a lot of Americans move to Panama. And expats tend to, like, they're seeking a more permanent connection with the community and the country they're going to. The country becomes part of their identity, just like their home country was. Where digital nomads, it's a little bit, the countries they travel to don't really become a part of their identity. Where expats, it becomes more of a part of their identity. And I mentioned there are nuances of these different things, right? We mentioned the digital nomad, which is a person that's working full time and is able to work remotely and bounces from country to country, depending on a bunch of different things. But there also are nomads like me, like retire and go, like grounded life finances, grounded life travel, that we've ended up making this little side income off YouTube. But when we started traveling, it was really just part of our retirement. We wanted to see the world. We wanted to experience different cultures, go to different places. And so it doesn't really revolve, our life doesn't really revolve around the work. It revolves more around being nomadic and the travel. So there are some nuances within the two different things too, right? The nomad and the expat, there are nuances. Same with the expat. There are expats that get stationed in a certain country, maybe in the military or with their job. I lived in Italy for 2 years when I was in the United States military. I was stationed in a little fishing village that happened to have a little NATO base called Gaeta, Italy. So I was an expat in Italy. I was more immersed in the culture. This was in the early 90s actually, and there was a lot less Western influence, especially in those small towns. There was no McDonald's or anything like that for me to go to and latch onto as an American. So I had to immerse myself in the culture. Not a lot of people spoke English, so I had to learn Italian. So io capito un po' l'italiano. I used to speak much better Italian, but so there's that type of expat, but there's also the type of expat that retires, is looking for a place to go. There are expats that meet their significant other and move to a different location. Like I have a friend who met a Hungarian woman and married her and then moved to Budapest to be with her. I have tons of friends that married Filipinos and moved to the Philippines. Same with Thailand. If you've been watching my channel, I hang out with a lot of guys that married someone in Thailand and then moved there. And so there are nuances within these different categories as well. So the next thing I'll talk about is cultural integration, which I kind of touched on. So nomads have the advantage of exploring multiple cultures, but by moving so often, by having frequent moves, they're not able to immerse themselves into the culture. It's harder to pick up the language and become fluent in the language and be able to have intelligent conversations in the language. It's obviously hard to form long-term relationships with people in that area, in that country, and really learn the customs and have that deep connection. Where expats, on the other hand, are able to fully integrate themselves into the place that they live, the local community. They can become involved in different things. They're probably paying taxes, and so they're more invested in the local area. They have longer-term visas and things like that. They tend to learn. They tend to become familiar and learn the language on a deeper level where they can have deeper conversations. And it just offers a richer experience, but not as broad, a more specialized experience. So you learn a lot about one country and one culture and one community, instead of a ton about, or a little about a lot of different cultures. And so there's difference there, and neither is good or bad. It's just different experiences. Okay, the next one is community connections. And maybe you're thinking I'm going to say nomads don't have any community connections, but there's actually a community within the nomad community, this more digital type of community that kind of like this here, like me talking to you guys and interacting with you guys on here, is kind of more of a digital community, a digital type of connection. And nomads frequent the cafes, the coffee shops, they meet other digital nomads. There are a ton of Facebook groups. Like we were talking about Johnny FD earlier, he has a Facebook group called the Nomad Coffee Club, which is headquartered out of Chiang Mai, but now is in a bunch of different locations. And it's something that he used to lead when he lived in Chiang Mai, but then he left, but then it continued on, and the Nomad Coffee Club continues on, and it's a really popular Facebook group. I traveled with a program called Remote Year, and that community is very close as well. You're not only close with the people that you travel with in Remote Year. For those who don't know, Remote Year is a group travel program. I traveled in the 1-year program, and I traveled with the same 30 plus people for an entire year. We lived in a different country every 30 days, and I'm super close with those people. Actually, they just sent me, by the way, it's my birthday today. Not looking for happy birthdays, I'm just saying it's my birthday today. And a lot of, I woke up with a gazillion messages in our little WhatsApp group from my travel group that I traveled with, which is really cool. And then the broader Remote Year community, we are all connected on different platforms. So yeah. With expats, like I mentioned, they're more likely to be involved in like local events, local clubs. Like when I was in Mexico City, I met a bunch of expats, and they had bachata and salsa clubs that they were involved in. And you can tap into them as a digital nomad, but you can't really like form these like really tight bonds and something like that. And I thought that was a really cool kind of expat group. It was a mix of expats and locals. It wasn't just expats, but that was a really cool group, and something that they had been doing for years and years and years, which was really cool. And like you have expats, which you live in a country for a long time, which allows you to form more close-knit relationships in that country, but also within the expat group too. And a lot of these places, like I'm in Kuala Lumpur right now, there's a huge amount of expats here from the UK, from the United States, from Canada. And there's all kinds of events here going on where the expats like get together. There are investment clubs. You guys know I'm really into investing. There are investment clubs that focus on the US stock market here. So it's kind of cool. So here's another like nuance between nomads and expats. It's the financial and legal considerations. So when you're a nomad like me, normally you don't stay in countries long enough to have any kind of tax implications. So your taxes are, I don't want to say they're simple, but they're more simple based on the fact that you're just probably using your home country's tax structure. Some countries don't tax you when you're out of the country, actually most, but the United States does. And so, especially if you're in the United States, your taxes kind of stay simple when you're bouncing from country to country, and you're on shorter term visas. So usually if you're on tourist visas, there's not a whole lot of work you need to do unless you want to stay beyond the tourist visa. A place like Malaysia that I'm in right now gives me 90 days. I'm only staying here 60 days, so all I had to do was arrive in the country, and I didn't have to do any paperwork, pay any money. I didn't have to do anything to stay here and enjoy Malaysia and the hospitality of Malaysia. But it can become difficult if you want to stay beyond that. Then you got to go do extensions. Maybe you got to hire professional that understands the system a little more. A lot of people who try to do the expat thing in Thailand, the digital nomad thing long term, know about like bouncing for visa runs every 30 days, trying to get extensions, all that kind of stuff. And so it's easier in a sense, but if you want to stay a little bit longer, it gets more difficult and can start to cost some money. You're also staying in short-term rentals when you are a nomad, and that's just going to be more expensive, and they continue to get more expensive as like the hosts, the Airbnb hosts realize the value of this to a digital nomad, a lake view like that. Like, what's the value of that going to be? Like 5 years ago, I could have got this Airbnb probably for $200 a month. And now it's closer to $1,000 a month. Not quite 1,000, but closer to $1,000 a month. Although this view of this park with this lake in anywhere in the United States would cost me quadruple that. So it's still very affordable, but more affordable than someone that lives in this building. If I wanted to rent this unit in this building, it'd be about $400 to $500 a month. So basically half the price that it would cost me. So a nomad is going to have less costs in some respects, but more costs in other respects. And it's probably going to cost you more to live as a nomad than it is an expat for sure. Expats are going to have a little bit more stable financial and legal situations. They're probably going to be on long-term visas, marriage visas, work visas. They're going to have longer-term residency permits and have a more stable ability to move around the country without having to worry about visas very often. Maybe you have to worry about it once a year, once every 5 years, something like that. If they're retired, they can get retirement visas in different places that make it a lot easier. They can also get local bank accounts. It's almost impossible to get a bank account in a foreign country if you do not sign a long-term lease and have some kind of residency. You're going to need those things. And even then it's challenging and can be difficult, but eventually it can be done. And so you have that, it's easier to function in the system when you have the banking system. Obviously you're signing long-term leases, so your housing is cheaper, and you're more than likely tapped into the local healthcare system and have some type of insurance and stuff like that. So if anything health related happens to you, it's easier for you to get affordable help, where it might be a little bit more expensive for a nomad and a little bit more challenging and difficult if you don't have the proper insurance set up. Where an expat, it's much easier for you to get that type of insurance. Although if you follow global life travels, or global life, grounded life travels, they travel similar to the way I do, and they have long-term health care insurance. So let's talk about the mindset and the goals. And this is going to be generalizations. It doesn't mean that one is this or that or the other, and it can be a mix of both. I actually consider myself kind of a mix of a nomad and an expat, because sometimes I stay long-term in a place, like I stayed in Thailand for a year. So, but I also move around a little bit. I don't even know what you would call someone that lives on a cruise ship and doesn't stay in a location for more than a day. But nomads are more driven by the desire of freedom, flexibility, and adventure. Their goals may revolve around exploring places, as many places as possible, experiencing different cultures, maybe to help them decide where they want to settle down in as well. The appeal of the nomadic lifestyle is the ability to kind of live on their own terms without being tied to one location. You guys have heard me say this a million times when people ask me, all right, why don't you buy a condo in Thailand? I don't want those administrative costs or tie downs. I like to be able to just go when I want to go. And that's why I like to live in Airbnbs, even though it's more expensive. I like being able to say, okay, this was fun. Now I want to go to, I don't know, I want to go live in Easter Island for a month, you know, or some other place that I want to go visit. Expats are more focused on stability and the depth of the experience. Maybe they're seeking professional growth because they're going on a work assignment, living in a country for a few years. Maybe they've chosen this place as a retirement place, although to a lot of retirees, I recommend that you do a digital nomad, a nomad thing first and try to figure out what you really like. Some people just pick a location based off YouTube videos and brochures and things like that, and maybe visit once or twice. And maybe it is great to them, but maybe there's something that they would love more. I mean, there's a lot of places that I've been that I probably would have never visited. I just happened to be in a group program that went to those places that I really love and could see myself being an expat in, like places like Medellin, Colombia. I would have probably never went to Medellin, Colombia. I wouldn't have thought I would enjoy Mexico City as much as I did. Puerto Escondido, Mexico, which is a surf town I love. Kind of reminds me of Hawaii, but it's in Mexico. And expats tend to focus more on like cultural immersion. They want to learn a language like in depth. They want to create a home away from home, like they're creating this new community, this new life. They're establishing roots. You know, they know the local grocer. They know, like, you know, all the things you would know as someone who lives in a community. They're more in touch with the community. So, and they're just different, and one isn't better than the other. You don't have to settle on one or the other. You can bounce back and forth between the two. You can be a nomad for a while, but eventually become an expat. Like in my mind, I think I'm going to be a nomad forever, but who knows? I may find a place where I'm like, oh, I really love this place. I just want to stay here and make it my home base, where maybe I still travel, but it's my home base. Okay, so let's jump into the questions. I know I was kind of rambling a little bit and all over the place, but I will jump into the chat here on my trusty iPad. And if you asked a question, please ask it again. I'm not going to scroll back because it'll just be too much to do. And if you just joined the chat, if you don't mind smashing that thumbs up button, I'd appreciate it. It helps more people find it. I'm doing this live stream on a different day than I normally do because football season started. If you don't know, I'm a huge St. Louis Rams fan. You know, I guess I have to call them LA Rams now, but I still refer to them as the St. Louis Rams. And I didn't abandon them when they left. I have too much emotionally invested. So the games come on at like 8 o'clock in the morning here, 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I guess I could go back to this when they have an early game. But I think I might switch to these Saturday evenings, which I know will get less people watching, but at least for the football season, maybe I'll switch back and forth between the two based on when the Rams games are, because they're either at 1 o'clock in the morning or they're at 4 o'clock in the morning, or tomorrow the Rams game is at 8 o'clock in the morning for me, because it's a late game for you guys on Sunday. I keep forgetting what day it is. It's actually still my birthday where you are, so thank you for all the happy birthdays. But in Malaysia, it's not my birthday anymore. So. And I'm not fishing for happy birthdays. Okay, someone says, do you have TriCare Prime or Select? So I have TriCare Select. I have the one where you get health insurance privately. So I have health insurance through Humana through TriCare. So I go through Humana for my doctor, my appointments, paying any kind of copay or anything like that. I tried the other version when I first retired from the military because I lived in DC. I was going to law school there, and there are little base clinics all over the place, and so I could go on base and get health care. But then when I left there, that was a little bit more challenging, and I just decided to use civilian doctors. So I got whichever the TriCare is that lets you pick. I think it's TriCare Select by the name. I think TriCare Prime is the one where you just go to a military base and get treatment at the clinics. But yeah, I have the TriCare Select, which I like because I get to pick my own doctor. Yeah. Thoughts on the expat and immigrant debate? Expat and immigrant debate. I'm not sure what that debate is. Are you talking about like maybe permanent? I mean, a lot of expats get permanent residency. Some of them even get citizenship. Like a lot of people will do like citizenship by investment. So they, if you have the money and they were going to buy a condo or property anyway, a lot of them try to get the citizenship by investment. And so they'll get a passport, which sometimes can be good because some passports are better in other places than other passports. Sometimes it's good to have different passports because they're more valuable in other places. Like they get you longer term visas, or they allow you to enter a country that you might not be able to enter, or something like that. Mark said, what about the Arizona Cardinals? So the Arizona Cardinals left when I was in 1985 when I was 10 years old, and I didn't have a connection with the Arizona Cardinals where I had a really deep connection with the Rams. So I didn't stay with the Cardinals because I was so young when they left. They left it around 1985. So I was only 10 years old. That kind of tells you how old I am, right? I'm 49 years old, my last year of my 40s. So, is there anything else that you think leads to the success of clubs, groups, more so than the US? Yeah, I mean, obviously it's that connection, right? Anywhere I go, I've always been really welcomed by expat groups, and some people say, well, that's because you have a popular YouTube channel. But I always get in these groups and I meet all kinds of people that don't have YouTube channels, and they were welcomed into the group and all that stuff. And so I think without the YouTube channel, it would have been exactly the same. And yeah, so let's see, if you had to decide on a home base, where would it be? I don't know yet. I haven't really made that decision. It would probably be somewhere in Asia. Obviously, I have a long-term visa in Thailand. I have the Thai Elite visa, which allows me to stay a year without worrying about it. And then I can just go and leave for one day and it'll reset my 1-year visa. Or I can go to the immigration office and get a new stamp, 1-year stamp too. So it does require a little bit of administration, but it's so easy to fly out of Thailand and go somewhere else. Like, I love Malaysia, I love Singapore, I love Vietnam. I can pay $30 for a plane ticket and go to any of those places for a day or 2 days or 3 days and reset my visa. So Thailand is a natural fit for me. I'm trying out Bonifacio Global City in the Philippines. I think I'm really gonna love that. I really like it here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Although it's a little bit too buttoned up for me. I like it, it's great. The people are amazing, the food is amazing, but it's a little bit too buttoned up for me because of the kind of like the strictness of the religion, which is none of my business, but I just prefer a little bit more of like, a little bit more openness. Not that it's not open here, because it's a very tolerant place, but you still can just feel it a little bit here. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It actually adds a little bit to a cultural experience, but if that makes sense. Since this is a Nomad Live, thought we would join using our van channel. Hey guys, what's going on? Yeah, check out Rob and Jan if you guys miss van life content. At some point, I'll be doing van life content again. I can't tell you when it's going to be. People ask me that all the time. I can't tell you when it's going to be. What's the combination of a nomad and an expat? I like to say global expat. For a while, people were calling me digital nomad, and I didn't really feel any connection with the digital nomad community. It was a bunch of people that had to work every day, and I was more of like, I used the word semi-retired. I was still working on my YouTube channel, especially in the beginning, very hard. I was going to co-working spaces and working 8-hour days, like coming up with video ideas, editing, trying to build my YouTube channel up. So it definitely felt more like a job, but I also had, my military retirement, I had my dividend income, I have my rental property income. I have income that supports me where I didn't really need to earn an income. I wasn't reliant on that income. It wasn't part of my fabric. I didn't have a boss or anything like that, where most digital nomads have a 9-to-5 job. And that's why it's really hard for a lot of digital nomads to come to Asia if they have to comply with US work hours. When I was traveling with Remote Year, Asia is a wonderful place to go to, but most of the people I was traveling with were miserable because they had to stay up all through the night and work, and then they would sleep all day. And so their biological clock, or their, not biological, their circadian rhythm or whatever it is, was all off, and they were kind of miserable in Asia. They were happy when we left, even though had they not had that job, they would have loved it. I mean, they still enjoyed it, but it was difficult for them because they had to work throughout the night. So in the beginning, you'll hear me kind of refer to myself as a digital nomad, but I was always apprehensive about calling myself that. And then I just started calling myself Nomad. And then I started staying in places longer term, 2-3 months. And then I went to Thailand for a year. So now what am I called? Am I a nomad? Am I an expat? What am I? And I just like the term global expat. It's an expat that lives all over the world. And I know people say, well, that's just a nomad. And you're right, it is. But I think it encompasses more when you say circadian rhythm. There we go. Did I say cicada like the bugs? I wonder if cicada or circadian rhythm has roots in each other, because maybe the rhythm of the sound of the cicadas, I don't know. Probably not. I had left a comment on Traveling with Christians channel about expats, and it basically got canceled in the comments section, being basically called white privilege. Yeah, that sucks. I think we should be able to have open conversations about this kind of stuff. I don't even know what the association with white privilege would be. I mean, maybe because, in a lot of cultures, I don't even know how to say this without causing some kind of uproar, but it's just like anything else. Maybe people think white people have more money, or they want to date them because that's what they see in Hollywood, or whatever that kind of stuff. There's no doubt that there is a little, I don't know what the right word would be, but there's a preference in some places to that. But it is what it is. You kind of have to play the hand you were dealt and live the life you live. And if you can speak out against stuff like that and try to do your part to help mitigate that type of stuff. But at the same time, you got to go live your life. You have to deal. You have to play the hand you were dealt. I mean, there's all kinds of privilege. There's economic privilege. There's racial privilege. There's religious privilege. There's a gazillion different types of privilege throughout the world. And so, all you can do is play the hand you were dealt, try to be a good person, and live a good life, and be a good person to other people. So, how's the weather and how's your stay? The weather's actually been great. It's supposed to be rainy season. I know I'm getting ready to go to Thailand, and to the Philippines, and they just had a typhoon there, and it rained for 8 days straight. So it might be a little bit more rainy there. So we'll see. I go there in, what's today, the 8th? I go there in about 3 weeks. So we'll see. But yeah, it's been great here. It's been it's rained a little bit, but not a lot for this time of year. And every day I go and I walk around that lake right there. It's a big park that goes around the lake. It's really pretty. There's a polo field over here too, which is interesting. There's a bunch of people riding around horses, hitting little balls. Yeah. Immigrant equals relinquished citizenship. Expat means living longer in a place. I mean, I wouldn't say immigrant means relinquishing your citizenship. I know a lot of people that have dual citizenships. I know a ton of people that have dual US Filipino citizenship. I know a ton of people that have dual like UK US citizenship. A lot of it maybe is by parental birth and stuff. But you're right. I mean, that can be a thing. But for the most part, people who immigrate from the United States to other places for whatever reason, for retirement, things like that, usually don't give up their US citizenship. They'll either get long-term visas, or they'll get long-term visas, or they'll be like long-term residents or something like that. And then there are a whole class of people now, if you follow the Nomad capitalist, that basically get as many passports as possible. So they have multiple different citizenships, and try to get the most value out of each passport and have it as like a backup plan. You know, one of the famous investors that I follow, Jim Rogers, Singapore gifted him citizenship. He still is a US citizen, but he also has Singaporean citizenship. Actually, he lives in Singapore now because he just prefers it over the United States. And so, yeah, I mean, there is a certain amount of people that do give up their citizenship to immigrate to somewhere else, but there's also a huge portion that don't do that maintain dual citizenship. So we definitely don't want to paint a broad brush. Have I been to Da Nang, Vietnam? I heard it's a great spot. I have not been to Da Nang, but I really want to go. If you've been following me for a while, you know I lived in Hanoi, Vietnam for a month and did the Nomad thing there for a while, and I love Hanoi. And I know Da Nang is different than Hanoi. You know, one's in the north, one's in the south, and they're very different. And so I'd love to go to Da Nang and experience it. But I loved Hanoi, Vietnam. It's like my favorite coffee in the world is the coffee you can get on these little street corners in Vietnam. It's such a huge coffee culture. I would say it's probably the biggest coffee culture in the world. You know, maybe Colombia, but Colombia is more snooty type of coffee culture, where Vietnam is more of a mass participation in the coffee culture. So I think I just love the coffee there. And the normal coffee, which is different than like coffee I'm used to, but their egg coffee too. The egg coffee in Vietnam, it's so good. If you go to Vietnam, you've got to have egg coffee. Just go give it a try. It is delicious. I find BGC similar to a US city. Nice to visit, but prefer the provinces. I get that for sure. I'm more of a city person myself. I do like, I only own one piece of real estate now. It's the lake house in the middle of the country. But I prefer cities. I like walkable areas. I like to be able to walk to the grocery store, movies, food, anything I want is within walking distance. I like safe. I like very walkable. But I get it. I get why people want to be out in the provinces and even the different cities in the provinces. I get that. But for me, I have a feeling. I haven't been there, and sometimes I misjudge a place by just looking at the YouTube videos and stuff. But as I've been watching more and absorbing more content about BGC, I think it's going to be a place that I visit frequently and often, and it's definitely somewhere that I think could be a possible home base in the future. And when I say that, I mean like when I'm 90. I don't mean like tomorrow. I mean when I'm like old. But yeah, I get that for sure, that people prefer the provinces, and I understand why. And you're definitely not going to get as rich of a cultural experience in BGC, and I get that 100%. And it's not like I'm not going to visit the provinces. My plan is to do is in my almost 4 months that I'm in BGC to fly to different places. And I mean, some of the clearest, beautiful water in the world are on the islands that are in the Philippines. So I'm excited to go check them out. Someone said, hey Kevin, I heard you're a fellow gamer. What games do you play on the road? Also, have you ever been to India and any plans to head there? So I have not been to India. I was actually supposed to go there during COVID. I had stuff booked and ended up not going, but I need to figure out a time to get back there. There's just so many things I want to do, and it's funny how quickly the years go by. I mean, I'm not just saying that because I just hit 49 the last year of my 40s. When you're traveling, like all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it's the next year. Like right now, everyone's like, oh, when are you going to go to India? And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go this year. And I'm like, well, shoot, I'm already booked up into 2025. And so it definitely won't be in 24. Maybe it'll be in 25, maybe 26. I don't know. So, but games, I love Civilization. I don't know if the new one has come out. I like those kind of strategy games. I'm kind of a dork in that kind of way. So yeah, I like games like that. The U.S. expatriation, God, I can't say that word, Act of 1866 actually sets definitions on the term. Yeah, I mean, that's very cool. I don't plan on getting a citizenship in any country. I just prefer residencies. I really liked Thailand because I was able to get the Thai Elite visa. That kind of allows me to come and go as I please and stay a year at a time. I am planning on the Philippines has this great visa program for retired military people when they hit 50. It's very inexpensive, and they basically give you residency there when you turn 50. So I plan on getting my residency in the Philippines as well when I turn 50 because it's very low cost. And why not? Why not be able to just come and go in the Philippines as I please? And it's something so the United States and the Philippines have had long-term ties, obviously, and a ton of Filipino nationals joined the U.S. military, especially when I was in the military, when I joined in the 90s. I'd say like 10 to 15% of the people I went to boot camp with were Filipino nationals. And so there's a lot of Filipinos that joined the United States military. And after 9/11, they allowed anybody who was a foreign citizen that joined the US military to get citizenship after 1 year. And so it was like a fast track to US citizenship. So a lot of Filipinos became US citizens, and they wanted to be able to get security clearances. So they gave up their Filipino citizenship, and then they did their 20 years, 30 years in the US military, retired, and then maybe they want to go back to the Philippines. So the Philippines has this program that allows them to get an easy visa, but also any other US military person. So I plan on taking advantage of that. Do you see going back to van life? Absolutely, 100% for sure I will go back to van life. You will see me in a van at some point. We don't call ourselves anything, we just like living our lives. Rob likes to call us Snowmads because we like to avoid snow. Yeah, I mean, in the RV community, there's this huge thing about chasing 70, which is basically chasing 70-degree weather, which is like, I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's very pleasant weather. It's not too hot, not too cold, and it's just very pleasant weather. You can sleep at night in your RV without having an air conditioner on or a heater on. It's just very pleasant. So, and a lot of times they're referred to as Snowmads because they're going south for the winter like the birds do, getting away from the snow. But chasing 70 is another popular term in the RV community. Someone said slow mad, a slower nomadic person. I like that. Slow mad is another good one. There's a lot of people that, I mean, they just constantly are traveling. And I tried that, like going to a place for a week and then going somewhere else, and it just did not fit my personality. I need at least a month in a place. I cannot do the switching every 3 days to a week or every 2 weeks. I need at least a month. And now, to be honest with you, I prefer more like 2 to 3 months. I really like to get into a routine, get settled in, and all that kind of stuff. So, what about the title Travel Ambassador? I like that. Traveling retired guy. Do you make YouTube content? I'm curious with that name. Yeah, if you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button, I would appreciate it. And if I missed your question, ask it again. I'm scrolling through now, so maybe I haven't gotten to it yet. Someone said, hope you had a nice birthday, Kevin. Thank you very much. It's the 8th now where I'm at. I know it's the 7th still in the United States, which is my birthday. But yeah, thank you. I had a wonderful birthday. I just kind of chilled, ate good food, hung out with a couple of my expat friends just for a little bit, and then came home and watched. I'm rewatching probably my favorite Netflix show of all time, The Last Kingdom, and it's actually even better the second time around because it sucks I know what happens to a lot of the characters, but if you've never watched The Last Kingdom, I think it's better than Game of Thrones, like a lot better. I think it's one of Netflix's best series they ever did. I think they kind of screwed it up at the end, like most series do, but if you haven't, there's also a book series. For those that don't know, it was a BBC show that Netflix bought and then continued. And BBC, if you've ever watched BBC shows, they do a really good job. It's kind of like historical fiction. It's based on historical fact. It's actually one of the more historically factual shows out there about medieval time in England. It's about, a lot of it centers around Alfred, which is considered the first king of England. He was the king of Wessex that kind of kept the Vikings at bay and basically kept Great Britain, England Christian. Without Albert, there probably wouldn't be Christianity in England now. Probably be something different. Maybe it would have got there, but it's very, very interesting show, and it's one of my favorite. The main character is historical fiction, but he's still an interesting character. Uhtred of Bebbanburg, which actually is a historical figure, but is loosely based on that character with a lot of literary license. DMC said, I booked a Airbnb in Da Nang for 3 months. It's my first time in Vietnam. That'll be awesome, man. I'm interested to hear your opinion of Da Nang. Again, I was in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I freaking loved it. Have you taken any sightseeing tours? I have not. I mean, I've been to Kuala Lumpur a bazillion times, so I have not. I have went down to KLCC a lot and to the Petronas Towers, which are the famous towers, the 2 twin towers. They now have a more popular, not more popular, they have a taller building. It's the second tallest building in the world. You can't see it in my skyline, it's actually over there. But they actually have a building that's taller than the second tallest building in the world now. The Petronas Towers, which are 2 twin towers, used to be the tallest building in the world before the Wiz Khalifa in Dubai, which is still the tallest building in the world. But the second tallest building now, again, is in Malaysia. But it's not the Petronas Towers, it's some new tower that I don't even know what it's called. Someone said the street dogs and roosters annoy me in the provinces. I'll keep my high-rise condo. Yeah, I love high-rise condos if you have not figured that out yet. Someone said go Chiefs because of Tay-Tay's boyfriend. Yeah, that's been an interesting phenomenon to watch as a long-time NFL fan, but it's good. I think it's good for the NFL. So what do you consider yourself family? Oh, you're saying that to Jan. I thought you were asking me. If you put a bunch of question marks before the question, I'll be able to see it's a question and be able to identify it. So if you do that, I'll definitely see it. So if I missed your question, please ask it again. I didn't miss it on purpose. I don't know how far behind I am, but hopefully I am. You seem like you're going stir crazy by 3 months since you got back traveling. You're going less stir crazy by 3 months. Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the routine. I mean, I switched Airbnbs here in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, and I'm in a completely different neighborhood now. So it's kind of like I went somewhere else, to be honest with you. It is really completely different, the neighborhood I'm in now and the neighborhood I was in before. I mean, it's still Malaysia, it's still Kuala Lumpur. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's great. In the Philippines, I'll actually be in the same Airbnb for over 3 months. So we'll see how I feel about that one. It's in the heart of BGC and Uptown. So I'm super excited about it. Do you speak any languages other than English, or maybe languages you can get by on? So I mentioned earlier that I lived in Italy for 2 years, and I actually became pretty decent at Italian, at conversational Italian. But that was, I mean, God, how many years ago was that now? 24 years ago when I left. So it's been, almost a quarter of a century. I can still speak it a little bit, but not like I could when I lived there and I was immersed in it. And yeah, I want to go back to that little town that I lived in. It's called Gaeta, Italy. It's beautiful. It's on the water. It's picturesque. It's a little fishing village. I've been looking at Airbnbs there and possibly having a reunion with some of the people I was stationed there with. I have a very solid friends group from that time, and we're all still really close. All these years, this quarter of a century later, we're all very close. So, but that's hard to organize. I'm the only one that's single, no kids. They all have families and lives, and they can't just drop everything to come to Italy for a month or two. But yeah, I've been looking at maybe possibly getting an Airbnb there for a month or two and just enjoying it again, visiting the areas I used to hang out, which I'm sure they're completely different now. It's a quarter of a century later. And it's just an amazing place. It's a town that's built in like a medieval town. Like the apartment that I rented there, the building was probably, 500 years old at least, probably more than that. It was a cool place to live though, very cool. Right on the water, like had this beautiful view of the water. Am I a Cardinals fan? Yeah, I'm a huge Cardinals fan. When I lived in St. Louis for a little bit, I took a little break to handle some medical issues. I lived about 2 blocks away from the Cardinals Stadium, Busch Stadium. And I don't know if you know this, but if you're retired military and you have an ID card, you can go to the games for free. So I went to almost every single home game. You just walk up, they have I can't remember the ticket counter number, but they have a special ticket counter that you can go to with a military ID, and they'll give you free tickets. And so I did that almost every single home game. The only home games I believe they didn't do it for were the Cubs games because, for whatever reason. But yeah, I went to every single Cardinals home game when I was there. And yeah, I'm a huge Cardinal fan. I mean, I'm more of a Cardinal fan than anything else. Cardinals and Blues, and now the soccer team, St. Louis City, I'm a huge fan of. But I stuck with the Rams even when they left St. Louis. I know you said in the past you don't really pay attention to weather when traveling. Ever been in Chiang Mai during burning season? I have been in Chiang Mai during burning season. And I would say I probably don't recommend it. For those who don't know, in Chiang Mai and in many places, they burn the rice fields at a certain time of year. And for whatever reason, the air does not move around well in that area, and the rice smoke just sits there. And even though you're in a very rural location in Chiang Mai, it's a big city though. I mean, it's got hundreds of thousands of people, but the air becomes really polluted during that time of year because of the burning of the rice fields. And it'll look like it does behind me. See how it kind of looks foggy there, although it really isn't. It's just the bright sun making it look that way. It probably looks a little bit less like that when I'm out of the way and not forcing that into the background. But it looks like it does right now, kind of in Chiang Mai. So yeah. Yeah, so that's probably something you want to avoid, but I just never really pay attention to that stuff. And for me, it's not a big deal. If I show up somewhere in the freezing cold winter, then I'll just go and buy some winter clothes. What is the longest you would consider staying in one place at this point in your life? I mean, it all depends on circumstances. If you're saying by choice, like a couple months, I mean, I'm going to be staying in the Philippines for 3 months, which is a long time for me. So it all depends on circumstance. During COVID, I stayed in Thailand for a year. Although I bought a motorbike and traveled all over, I didn't stay in the same spot. I lived in Bangkok, in Jam Tien, Chiang Mai, and stopped in a bunch of little province cities and things like that. So, I did stay in a country for a year, and it's definitely something I would consider doing. I lived in the United States for a year when I was doing van life, even though I was nomadic, traveled from state to state. But that's just a hard question to answer because it just depends on the circumstances of the situation. And I don't know, we'll see. I have been thinking in my head of getting a home base somewhere. If it's going to be somewhere in the United States, somewhere where I have access to an international airport really easily, preferably multiple international airports. And I also have access to maybe a cruise port, so I can integrate all the different types of travel I like doing, and maybe get a townhouse where I have a garage and I can store my van for van life and all that kind of stuff, so I can just integrate all my different travel lifestyles. Where would you want to have Christmas? So a lot of people in the United States associate Christmas with snow and winter weather, but I'm excited about doing Christmas in the Philippines. If you don't know about the Philippines, nobody does Christmas like the Philippines. I mean, like October 1st, actually I would say probably September 1st, it's acceptable to put up Christmas decorations. And you will see it. I mean, I get there October 1st, there will be Christmas stuff everywhere by then. They celebrate Christmas from September to January, the end of January. So it's a super Christmassy place. They love Christmas and decorating for Christmas in the Philippines. And so I think that's a cool place to do the Philippines. Obviously, I did the Christmas markets in Europe when I was there, in Hungary, and that was an amazing experience. And so, yeah, I would probably say, I mean, I'll let you know, but I'd probably say the Philippines. Amla said, I left LaSalle just before they got there. So you were on LaSalle. I was stationed on the USS Lasa, by the way, in Italy. LaSalle is a ship, by the way, USS Lasa. They eventually switched to the USS Mount Whitney. While I was there, I'm not sure what the flagship there is anymore. Actually, I think we did another ship too. I can't remember the name of it. But I was on the USS LaSalle. I remember the LaSalle well. That was my first ship out of Italy when I was there. So that's very cool. Amla says, I plan on going back someday. Gaeta is my favorite place. That's very cool. Were you stationed there in the Navy, I'm assuming, Amla? My dad is a Cardinal fan. I'm a Braves fan. Well, then your father failed you. Your father failed you. Do you travel with clothing for all 4 seasons, or do you swap things out? I swap things out, but I'm usually in places where I can wear shorts and flip-flops. So it usually doesn't matter. I mean, when I was on cruise ship, I obviously had more winter, but I usually just wear layers, and I'll buy like a cheap jacket, and then I'll just donate the jacket when I leave. But I have long sleeve merino wool, and you can wear like a short sleeve like this, and you can layer it, and you can be very warm. I almost always travel with some kind of beanie for my head to cover my ears and my head to keep me warm. And so it's actually really easy. I have a little neck gainer that I travel with, a merino wool neck gainer that I travel with, so I can make almost any shirt kind of like a turtleneck. And that's been the way I've dealt with it. I mean, I was on cruise ships traveling all throughout the North Atlantic where it was chilly weather, and I did fine without having to add too much. I mean, I just added a jacket, and then I donated that jacket when I left. Do they burn because it isn't windy or because of the planting? I mean, it's because of the timing of the planting that they're burning the rice fields. Do you move around during your treatment? That was 6 months, wasn't it? Yeah. For those who don't know, I had some medical treatments, and I was stuck in St. Louis for 8 months, really. I rented my apartment for 8 months. I ended up staying there 8 months. But I was only like a block away from St. Louis's Busch Stadium, which is downtown St. Louis, which actually isn't the best place to live. It's pretty much a dead zone. COVID, it was already dying downtown, and COVID put the nail in the coffin. There wasn't a lot of open businesses, which kind of sucked. There was a grocery store, a Schnucks, if you know about Midwestern grocery stores, which was nice. I could walk there. But other than the baseball stadium and the hockey stadium, it was a dead zone down there. Have I been to Vietnam? Yeah, I lived in Hanoi, Vietnam for a month. If so, do you prefer Thailand or the Philippines? What would you say are the differences? So I don't prefer any of them. It just depends on my mood, where I want to go. I like Vietnam. I love I mean, it's just different, you know. Like culturally, they're just different places. I mean, Thailand is primarily Buddhist. Vietnam is like no religion, like religion free basically. The Philippines are very Catholic. And so religion-wise, it's very different. The Philippines, they speak very good English. Thailand, they speak maybe some conversational English, and Vietnam, hardly any English. The food is different, but all really good. Like Filipino food is great, but it's super fattening and unhealthy. Thai food is very hot and spicy and can be unhealthy because of all the sodium they use, but very good. I would say Vietnamese food is actually very, very, very healthy and really good and different. So it's all different. None is better than the other. None of it I prefer more than the other. It's just different, you know. And I haven't spent a lot of time in the Philippines outside of my time in the military, which were very short stays, 2 to 3 day stays. This is the first time I'm going there where I'm going to be like living there. So I don't really have a fully formed opinion on it, but I just have a feeling I'm gonna like it. But yeah, they're different. They're very different for a lot of different reasons. Culturally, politically, religious in religious ways, and so they're just different experiences, and just depends on what I feel like doing. I mean, they all have a lot of similarities too, though. They all have like beautiful beaches. They have, you know, amazing food, although the food is different. And yeah. The way I understand it, Thailand sits geographically in a bowl, which makes the air stagnant during the January through March burning season. Yeah, that's what I understand as well. Florida might work for that. Yeah, I've considered Florida, although the property taxes and insurance is getting really high. I've actually been looking at Galveston because Galveston has a really good port, and you can actually buy a really cool like loft type of condo right next to the cruise port, where you can just walk to the cruise port, be there in 2 seconds. But I can also take a Uber to 2 different international airports there, George Bush and then the normal Houston airport. There's 2 airports there. And so, yeah. And they all have direct flights to like overseas locations. So I've been really looking at Galveston as a spot maybe, but we'll see. what are you looking forward to seeing and doing in BGC? I'm looking forward to just being in a very walkable, safe neighborhood, which I've heard BGC is that. I've been watching a lot of the YouTube channel Mom Duty and Always Be Changing. They have their ABC in the Philippines channel. They've all made, they were all like nomadic family travel channels where they were couples that were traveling with their young children, which I find very interesting and fascinating. Like, how do you educate them? Also, like, what an amazing educational experience they're getting as a kid. So that side of it interests me. But they both chose BGC as a place to use as a home base now for their travel. And Mom Duty bought a condo there, and I think ABC is renting a long-term condo there. And I just find it, I found it fascinating what they're doing. And it really interests me, even though I don't have a family or kids. I've often thought about like maybe bringing my nieces and nephews to somewhere that I'm staying for that cultural experience, if their parents would allow it. I think maybe they would enjoy it. And I need to find somewhere that's really safe, that my siblings would feel comfortable sending their children to. And I think BGC kind of fits that bill. I know people are going to say BGC is a bubble. It's not the Philippines. I get it. But you know what? It's populated by almost all Filipinos. So I think Filipinos would take offense to that, like they can't live there or something. But yeah, I'm super excited about I've heard there's some great restaurants there, although they're more expensive than maybe outside of that BGC bubble. But there's a lot of really good Filipino restaurants there, I'm told. But there's also the Western restaurants. They have what's called a Landers there, which is kind of like a Costco, which I'm super excited about having. I actually live like a block away from the Landers, so, and Uptown Mall, which is right there. So yeah, I'm super excited about it. But yeah. Suri K says, yes, Christmas has started in the Philippines. The Burr months is what they call it. See, it's already started. It's September. So I'm super excited. Yeah, nobody does Christmas like the Philippines. Like, I know people may take offense to that and be like, oh, Christmas in America is great, or Christmas in Holland is great, or like, nobody does Christmas like the Philippines. So. Rob bought a merino wool sweater and he really likes it. It's good for Alaskan cruises. Yeah, I mean, I swear, you guys know I swear by merino wool. Unbound Merino is my brand of choice, but whatever brand you enjoy, I love merino wool. Any big plans for your 50th birthday? I don't know, maybe I should. Hey, it's Emily, one of my travel buddies. What's going on, Emily? I have not really thought about that, Emily, to be completely honest with you, like what to do for 50. I've never been like a person that celebrates holidays or my birthday or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe I should figure out something to do for 50 that's like epic. Maybe I can get Steve Bezos to take me up into orbit in one of his spacecraft. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know how much that is. It's like $250,000. Like, maybe that's, I mean, you can't die with your money. Maybe that's something I'll do one day, so I can say I've been to space, do that, one of those space tourism things. Maybe the price will come down a little bit or something. But you can't take the money with you, so why not use it on experiences? Last live, someone said Vietnamese coffee is the best. Do you agree? Yeah, I love the coffee in Vietnam. It's amazing. I mean, they obviously will give you black coffee, but they put like condensed milk in it and some other stuff, and it's just really good. And then they have the egg coffee, egg coffee is some of the best coffee I've ever had in my life. It's really, really tasty. So I highly recommend it. But yeah, I would say two things I love about Vietnam: banh mi sandwiches and coffee. Like, I love a good banh mi sandwich. And you that's where they come from. You cannot find a better banh mi sandwich than what you get in Vietnam. So, Rob says, can we get a good banh mi recommendation in Ho Chi Minh City? So I've never been to Ho Chi Minh City. So I've only been to Hanoi. So I don't have a good recommendation for you down there. If you were going to Hanoi, I could send you maybe a link to, I always do little pins in places that I liked. I could probably send you a pin to a place that I enjoy, but I've never been to Ho Chi Minh City. I wish I had that. When are you guys going to Ho Chi Minh? How do you find dating as a global expat? Man, I get that question so much. People are so curious about that. I would say it's very similar to dating in other places and very different. It's very similar, like you can use Bumble or Tinder or what's the other one, Hinge. I prefer Bumble because it's a little bit less, I don't know. There's a lot less crypto scammers out there on that one. And so I just prefer that one. But yeah, just like anything else, and you find people that share interests with you and you go out and you share a meal and share a conversation. I'm obviously a difficult person for people to date because I travel so much. So usually they're more interested in hearing about my life than actually dating me. But yeah, I mean, I would say it's very similar to anywhere else, especially when you're doing it a little bit more, staying in places a little bit longer. It'd probably be more of a hookup culture type of thing if you were a nomad staying a week or two in a place. But if you're staying a month, 2 months, 3 months, it's more like dating anywhere else, to be honest with you. I started watching you when you bought your Class B van. Did you sell your van? Yeah, I sold my van in 21, 22, and flew to flew to Thailand and bought a motorcycle and motorcycled all over Thailand. So yeah, I loved van life. It was one of my favorite things to do. The good, the bad, the ugly, you asked. I mean, for me, I had a very bougie van, so I had like unlimited access to electricity. It was really easy for me to get a shower. I also owned, that camping pass. I can't remember the name of it. Not Harvest Host, but I had a camping pass where I could had access to all these campgrounds and everything. And so that made it easy for me. Obviously, I did a lot of like Bureau of Land Management camping when I was out west. But yeah, I loved it. It was great. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. We will be in the Philippines in October. Very cool. So will I. Where will you be? Leaving on Carnival Panorama on October 12th for a 25-day Trans-Pacific. That's pretty awesome. I'm jealous. Yeah, that's too early for me. Trans-Pacific just hasn't lined up in the right time frame for me. I want to do a Trans-Pacific, whether it's from the West Coast of the United States over to Australia or Japan or vice versa. Surrey will be in the Philippines in October, currently in Vancouver. Very cool. Vancouver was where I left before I came to Asia. Let's see. Liana said, I bought a home base for longer stay living. I get that for sure. Kevin, what areas outside of BGC do you plan on visiting? Just all of the recommended places that you hear, like Palawan. I mean, anything you can think of. I haven't booked anything. I'm going to book it when I get there. Maybe I can piggyback onto some other friends that are traveling while they're there. But maybe I'll do it by myself. But yeah, all the places that you think of when you think of like beautiful beachy places in the Philippines. Like all of that. And then obviously I'll explore more Manila. I'm not just going to stay in BGC. Is BGC considered part of Manila? Yeah, BGC is considered part of Manila. Actually, it's considered, BGC is just a neighborhood in a place called Tawig, which is like metropolitan area in the major metropolitan area of Manila. Manila is a bunch of different like municipalities. Like you have Metro Manila, and then like there's a lot of different places that are part of Manila, but people refer to as other things. The teeth look great now that you've had it for a while. Does it feel normal? You know the words you can't even tell you had it done at all. Yeah, I mean, it feels normal. When I see old pictures of myself and I see my smile, it kind of doesn't look like me to myself anymore because I've just kind of gotten used to this smile, and it kind of like, for those who don't know, I've got a whole video about it. I went and got veneers veneers and whatever the other thing is called. Geesh, how come I cannot think of the name of it? I keep wanting to say cavities, but that's not it. I had no cavities, by the way. Anyway, I got a bunch of dental work done while I was in Vietnam, or while I was in Thailand, and I just wanted my Hollywood smile back from when I was in my 20s. Crowns, there, someone said it. Thank God. Yeah, I got veneers and crowns, and yeah, here's a smile. But yeah, I mean, it's part of my teeth. It's all either connected to my teeth or over the top of my teeth. So it feels normal, and yeah, I'm completely used to it now. I always talked with a little bit of a lisp anyway, so that's nothing new because I have an overbite. So I always had that anyway. But yeah, I don't think I'm having any issues talking or pronouncing things or spitting when I'm talking or anything like that. Do I ever hear from Amber? I haven't heard from Amber. I know she left van life, but yeah, I need to get in contact with her and see how she's doing. John says we're going from Singapore to Malaysia, Vietnam. Robin Jan says Philippines, Guam, Hawaii, and then LA. Man, that is an awesome itinerary. I'm so jealous. That is an amazing itinerary. We're doing a Trans-Pacific from Seattle to Tahiti over to Sydney. Yeah, that's the cool one, man. You're doing the Pacific Island one, which is going to be amazing. DMW says he's going to be in Bangkok and Siem Reap, Cambodia for Christmas and New Year's Eve. First time out of the US for the holidays since he was in the Navy 35 years ago, stationed in Naples, Italy. Very cool. I'm sure you know Gaeta, Italy was north of Naples. I used to go down to Naples to do my shopping because there was a base there I could shop on, but yeah. Sorry if you already answered this, but what detergent do you use to wash your merino wool? I just use normal detergent. I used to travel with like a special merino wool detergent. Now I just wash my merino wool in the washer and dryer. Unbound Merino says it's washer and dryer safe. I don't put it in the dryer. I hang dry it, which is what you're gonna do in Asia anyway. But I just use the normal Tide Pods. You can get Tide Pods over here. It's called like USA or something like that, but it's the same color, like orange and all that stuff. And I just use Tide Pods, and it has worked for me. The shirt I'm wearing right now, this shirt is like 6 years old. If you watch my original Unbound Marine video, Unbound Merino, this is the shirt. It's faded a little bit, but 6 years, a t-shirt. Like if this was a cotton black shirt, it would have been gone years ago. And it's still holding up. I actually, I woke up this morning, I sleep in this one. This is the one I sleep in. And so, yeah, I woke up in this shirt this morning. Not that you wanted to know that, but yeah, I just wash it with normal detergent. What you want to be careful with is drying merino wool, especially black merino wool, in the sunlight, because the sunlight will fade the material. So make sure you can dry it outside, but dry it in the shade. Do not put it in direct sunlight. That will eventually start fading out. I've learned that. You can kind of tell this one's kind of faded a little bit. It's like black, but at certain angles it looks a little bit brown because it's faded. But I mean, it's a 6-year-old shirt, so. I bought this shirt in 2018, right before I started traveling full time. I don't know much travel to the Philippines. Do they have a good visa? Yeah, I mean, they have a really good visa. At first, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. You'll get a 30-day when you initially arrive, but then you can go get extended right away for another 60 days, so 90 days total. And then you can keep extending it up to 3 years. At some point, they give you a 6-month and then I think a 1 year. But you can extend over and over again without having to leave the country there, which is very rare. So yeah, I'm new to it, so I'm going to be learning. Maybe I'll do videos about it. But yeah, I'm hoping it is painless. When I turn 50, I mentioned earlier, I plan on getting their U.S. military friendly visa that they have, because they know you have a military retirement if you're retired from the military. And so all you have to do is prove that you have this military retirement, and they give you this long-term visa, and it's very affordable. So I plan on getting actually that long-term visa. So then I'll have my Thai Elite visa, but I'll also have that. So. Did you say you had cancer and beat it? Asked John. So I've had cancer twice. I had skin cancer, basal cell skin cancer on my forehead, and they just chopped that out. And then I had very minor prostate cancer, and I went through treatment for that, and it was a laser type of treatment along with some drug cocktails, and it was very minor. Actually, had I not got treated, the doctor was like, you'll probably still live 30 years more, which I'm 49 now, so I would have, lived into my late 70s or 80s with no treatment. But I'm completely cancer-free, which is great. And yeah, I won the lottery of cancer twice. I got really lucky. So, congrats on the dental work. You think good for plastic surgery, considering after my 40-pound weight loss I'm working on? Yeah, I mean, a lot of people get plastic surgery in Thailand. It's very famous for like gender reassignment surgery, like a lot of transgender people. Hawaii has a huge like ladyboy culture, and they get like fake boobs and other things done, like nose surgery and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know that much about that stuff, but I know it's very prevalent there, and a lot of people go there for that. But I haven't done enough research enough to recommend that, Emily. So don't listen to me on something like that. So there are YouTube channels that probably have done it, but yeah. I thought about actually getting plastic surgery on my nose, because I have like a collapsed septum and one of my nostrils, and they can go in and like correct that. It wouldn't be like for cosmetic reasons. It would just be for like breathing reasons. But yeah. Maxine says, is it worn out yet? I mean, the shirt's 6 years old. Most of my other Unbound Merino are much younger than that, in the last 2 or 3 years, and they're still in great shape. But this one, it's seen better days. That's why I just sleep in this one. And congratulations on the 40-pound weight loss, Emily. That's freaking amazing. I lost 35 pounds a few months ago. Not a few months ago, like immediately, but over time. And it's been great. I feel really good. So congratulations. how do you handle being alone all the time? So I have videos about this, but I'm very much an introvert. Like I am as far left on the introvert scale as you can be, like the Myers-Briggs. I am like a 99 out of 100 introvert. I'm very much an introvert. And I know that surprises a lot of people, but I am very comfortable being alone. And it doesn't mean I do not like human interaction or hanging out with people. I actually love it. I love social interactions. I love hanging out with people. I love being with my family and friends. But also being alone does not bother me. And I don't really get lonely very much. Maybe I'll miss my mother or stuff like that, but that's like less about lonely and more about me just loving my mother, right? So yeah, that's kind of how my personality is. I mean, I can be like, I've always like those shows where you have to be in isolation for like a long period of time. If you just give me like the internet and Netflix and stuff, like I could do one of those shows easy. I'll outlast everybody. Like I could last a long time. I could be on one of those Survivor shows like alone I could last a long time without having to deal with the psychological parts of being alone. Now maybe I would like starve to death or something because I don't think I have the survival skills at the level that those people do. But psychologically, I think I would do very well on one of those shows. I don't need human interaction. And again, that's not like saying that I don't like it or enjoy it. I do. I don't or shy away from it. I don't shy away from it either. But it doesn't bother me to be alone. I say this all the time. There's this great YouTube video called Happier Alone. It's like claymation. Like remember those old Christmas movies like you watched when you were a kid, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, all those claymation. There's a movie called Happier Alone on YouTube. It's an award-winning claymation. And I always just tell people to go watch that and you'll kind of understand me better. Any plans to go back to cruising? Yes. Like I will probably be cruising a big portion of 2025. I haven't booked anything yet, but I've been piecing together itineraries of possible cruises where I can stay on the same ships mostly. I really enjoyed that, like spending 100 days on a ship. And so I've been piecing together itineraries yeah, I'll probably be on a cruise ship for a big portion of 2025. Yeah, definitely. Those are like the only videos I have now that make money. Those videos have stayed popular. I mean, each one of my cruising videos makes like $100 to $150 a month. I can't even believe it that they're still making that kind of income. People love cruise content. So financially, it's a good decision, but I love doing it too. I miss it. You know what I love about cruising? There's a couple things that I really miss. Number one, having access to food 24/7, like healthy food. I know that sounds like, that's not what cruising's about. It's about eating as much cake and pie as you can, and ice cream as you can possibly eat. But they also have healthy options and they're available 24/7, which is amazing. I love having access to that. I miss that. It's so easy to stay healthy on a cruise ship. I know, again, that sounds like, what, are you nuts? It is, like it really is. So I really miss that. I miss being able to tap into social interactions whenever I want. But the second I'm ready to be done with it, I can be in my cabin in 2 minutes. I can be done with it in my cabin, showered, relaxing, watching some YouTube. I miss that a lot. And I also miss, the thing I miss the most, I never really looked at the itinerary after I booked it. And so I would be on a cruise ship and I would wake up and I would grab the itinerary and say, where am I at today? Oh, awesome. I am in, Sadie's Fjord, Iceland. Let's go and explore Sadie's Fjord, Iceland. I love that. I miss that so much. I really loved that. It was really weird. It was kind of like having all the conveniences of home once you're like used to living on a cruise ship, but also being nomadic. It was something different than anything I've ever done. Van life has that, but you're doing the driving, right? You're expending that energy going from one location to another. And being on a cruise ship constantly, it was really cool. Like, my favorite thing was waking up in the morning and seeing where we were. I know that sounds crazy. People are like, what? People used to always ask me, like, where are you going to? And I'm like, I don't know. And it would piss people off that I couldn't tell them what my next cruise port was. But that's what I really enjoyed not knowing. Like grabbing that itinerary when I wake up, because it's always, I go to bed early and it's slid underneath your door. I would get up, I would grab the itinerary, stick it on the bed. I would either order coffee or go grab coffee, and I would come back and okay, where are we at? And then bam. Or walking, those that been watching my channel know I walked every morning. I tried to get 10 to 20,000 steps every morning when I was on the cruise ship. And stepping outside and like seeing where we were was like the coolest feeling. And I miss that. Rob and Jan are headed to bed. Good night, everyone. Good night, guys. Did you find the people in Thailand more friendly than Vietnam or the Philippines? So I mentioned this earlier. This is my first long-term visit to the Philippines. I've been there in the military before. And I'm very familiar with Filipino culture because I lived in Hawaii for almost 10 years. And there's huge Filipino culture there. But I don't feel, I need to get there and spend some time there to really make my own assessment of that and actually be in the Philippines. So I can't really compare it to the Philippines. But I would say Thailand is more friendly than Vietnam. Vietnam is very conservative, and so it takes a little bit to bust through that exterior. But once people trust you, then they're very, very friendly. But it is less like the Buddhist culture is just super welcoming. And Thailand is called the land of smiles for a reason. And Vietnam is just different in that respect. It's not bad, it's just different. So I would say, yeah, Thailand's probably more friendly. I would say Philippines is probably a little bit easier for a Westerner if you speak English, because they all speak English. And a lot of them are proficient in English where they can have intelligent, deep conversations in English. Where in Thailand, that's a little bit less prevalent. Maybe you'll get it in Bangkok with the educated class, the white collar class, you might get some of that. But for the most part, it's going to be very superficial conversations. You're not going to be able to have deep, intelligent conversations in Thailand. So maybe the Philippines is more friendly in that respect because you can have a deeper conversation in many cases. Have you been to Merida, Yucatan, Mexico? Yes, I have. I have. It's awesome. But I haven't spent a lot of time there. I worry about security. Do you ever think about your security as an American? So I would say 90% of places in the world are more safe than most places in the United States. I'm just telling you, I've only had crime committed against me in the United States, and I don't spend that much time in the United States. I've been mugged twice in my life, both times in the United States. Those have been in cities, and I've had my catalytic converter stolen by meth addicts in rural areas in the United States. I have a little lake house. I had my aluminum boat stolen by meth addicts, and my house vandalized by meth addicts in rural areas. I would say the United States is much less safe 99.9% of places. I feel much safer in Mexico City than I do in any city in the United States. I feel 1,000,000 times safer in Medellin, Colombia than I do in St. Louis, Missouri. 1,000,000 times safer in Medellin than I do in St. Louis. I would walk around Medellin at 2 o'clock in the morning, and feel perfectly safe. I would never walk around St. Louis at 2 o'clock in the morning. 100% will get mugged. That is a 100% chance of getting mugged. So, yeah, I would say most Americans watch news channels that tell them that other places in the world are unsafe, and it's just not true. Like this place I'm at right now, Malaysia, it's a big city with millions of people. I would walk around here at 2 o'clock in the morning, any day of the week, and not feeling safe. I'd walk around here at 2 o'clock, or Bangkok, Thailand, anytime. In Tokyo, Japan, you can leave your cell phone on a park bench, come back in 2 weeks, and it'll still be on that park bench. Like, if you're an American and you have fear of traveling abroad, you have been, the US media has influenced you to thinking those places are unsafe. They are almost always safer than anywhere you will be in the United States, including rural areas in the United States. You have a less likelihood of getting shot there. Your kids definitely have a less likelihood of getting shot. There's not a whole lot of gun violence in most parts of the world. Where there is a lot of gun violence in the United States, it happens all the time. And I'm not making a political statement here. I'm just telling you the truth based on my experiences. So the only time I ever feel unsafe is when I'm in the United States, to be completely honest with you. So I would say you're much safer outside of the United States than you are in the United States. Sorry that sometimes I get on those rants, and they're not political statements. I'm being totally honest. I'm just telling you, like, Americans think other places in the world are unsafe, while living in the unsafest places, the places with the most gun violence. Like, it's just the places with the most drug-infested areas, rural and city, and yeah, you are much more likely to be a victim of crime in the United States, and violent crime in the United States, because everyone has a gun in the United States, and most of the rest of the world that is not true. So you're much likely to survive a stabbing or getting hit with a baseball bat or something than you are getting shot. So let's see. Do I meditate? I've had friends that do, and I've tried to get into it, but it's never been something I've ever been able to get into. D Walker's in the house. What's going on, D? I'm doing back-to-back in January. Do they make you get off the ship for the second part? So you will have to get off the ship, but you can go right back on. You'll have two choices. You can leave the ship for the day and explore wherever you're at. So if you're in Fort Lauderdale, you can leave and go, and then reboard later. You'll have a special little pass that allows you to jump the line to get back on the ship if you want to go explore. But if you don't, you'll be able to sign up to where the ship just takes you off, takes you through security and immigration, and then back in. It'll be really quick. It'll be a really quick process. So you'll be able to make one of those two decisions. In the United States, you have to have a completely empty ship before they allow new passengers on the ship. You have to go to what's called zero count, and then passengers can reboard. So you're always going to have that. Did I get the pounds on the cruise ship? I don't know what that means. If you're asking me if I got sick, if that's another word for sick, yes. I've gotten sick on cruise ships a couple times. I have videos about it. What is your recommendation on cruise ports in Southeast Asia? I would like to sail out of Thailand as a second home, but I believe it's that busy for cruises. Yeah, so Singapore would probably be a better idea, but you can get to Singapore from Thailand really easy. I mean, it's a super cheap flight, and you can usually get direct flights from provinces too to Singapore. So there is a Royal Caribbean ship that's stationed out of Singapore, so you can get on that ship anytime you want. And then there are cruise ships like Princess and other cruise lines that pass through Singapore and maybe do round trips from Singapore, or they start in Singapore and into Japan or something like that. So I would say Singapore is probably a better option. You won't find a huge amount of cruises coming out of Thailand. But if you go to Cruise Plum, you can search by departure location. So you can search by Thailand and also by Malaysia or Singapore, or maybe the whole area here, the whole area of Asia you can search by as well. So yeah. Name your 3 favorite large cities in the world, says Emily. Favorite is not a word I like to use because it just depends on my mood. But and I'm about to go to Manila, so we'll see. I bet you BGC in Manila ends up one of them. It just seems to fit my personality. I haven't stayed there yet, so I can't make that judgment call. And sometimes I'm wrong about places I think I'm gonna like. But favorite cities. Oh man, I really love Lisbon, Portugal. Obviously I love Thailand. I love Jom Tien, Thailand at the beach, and I love Bangkok. I love Chiang Mai, Thailand too. Kuala Lumpur is a place I love. I don't know if I put it in my top 3, but Mexico City I love. Medellin I love. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, this could be something we talk about forever. I love Reykjavik, Iceland. I mean, picking a favorite is just impossible. Like, it's not something I could do. Feeling safe in Canada. Yeah, I feel super safe in Canada. Although I'd say Vancouver is very similar to Seattle as far as like methamphetamine issues. Kiki says, I live a few hours from St. Louis. That place scares the crap out of me. Yeah, and I mean, even a few hours from St. Louis scares the crap out of me. I mean, my mother lives in a rural area, and there's meth addicts all over the place. There's constantly trailer parks blowing up there and cars getting broken into, and like, it's just, yeah, it's bad. There's shootings in rural schools all the time, and it sucks. But I'm not saying I love the United States, and there are places that, like, I feel safe in New York City, maybe because there's always people around, but I never felt unsafe in New York City. Even when I lived in downtown DC, I never felt safe in downtown DC. There are neighborhoods that you can go to in DC that are unsafe, but I never felt unsafe in downtown DC. Some cities are safer than others in the United States. St. Louis is probably one of the worst as far as safety goes. I don't know why. I don't know why they can't crack that nut, but there are cities in the United States where I feel safer in than others, and I'm not like bashing the United States, but it's always interesting when, you know, most of my friends and family are from St. Louis, and they go, "Don't you feel unsafe?" And I'm like, "You live in one of the most dangerous places in the world." Like, there's always these lists of like top 10 most dangerous cities in the world, and St. Louis and Detroit are usually in the top 3. Like, St. Louis is above Mogadishu, Somalia, where Black Hawk Down took place. Like, it's above that per capita of dangerous cities in the world right now. It is more dangerous than Mogadishu, Somalia. Like, and they're asking me, "Don't you feel unsafe in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Because someone told them that maybe it's unsafe because it's a Muslim country. Like, this place is, like, there's like one murder every like 50 years here. Like, there was probably 20 murders in St. Louis last night. Like, this place is super safe. Someone said Slovenia. I've been to Slovenia. I spent a lot of time there back in the day, and Slovenia is very safe. Do you think there are negative stigmas surrounding America now? Do people treat you rudely in Asian countries? I wouldn't say that. I mean, there's always like people always associate people with like their nationality, but as we know, like that's a very layered decision. Like, people in the United States are very different in their mentality, their political beliefs. Like, just because you're from the United States doesn't mean you agree with with Biden. Just because you're from the United States doesn't mean you are like Trump. You know, like, it's very nuanced, and it's the same in other countries. Just because you're from Palestine doesn't mean you want all Jews to die. And I don't want to get into a political debate here, but we tend to paint people with broad brushes, where it's very nuanced and very different from person to person what they believe, and it doesn't necessarily. It's you know, in my experience, all people want, for the most part, want the same thing. They want to live in a safe place. They want safety and prosperity for their family. You know, they want to be able to practice the religion they want to practice. They want to be able to live the life they want to do, live with as much freedom as possible without endangering other people. And so I would say that probably that does happen, but it's not something that I have experienced that much. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are places in the world where it's a terrible idea to say you're from the United States, obviously. But in the United States, it's can be a terrible place to say you're from somewhere else as well, because there's a lot of bigoted people in the United States. So, I mean, we have a whole history of that. So, and when I talk about this stuff, I tend to sometimes sound negative about my own country. I love the United States. I served in the US military for 20 years. Like, I love the United States. But I'm also not oblivious to the issues we have, and sometimes the pedestal we put ourselves on unjustifiably, when we're all just people in the world. We're not better or worse than anybody else. There's a cruise port in Croatia or somewhere like that. Yeah, there are cruise ports in, there's an Adriatic cruise. Like, I think one of them ports in Venice as well, which is right across the water from Croatia. I'm sure there are cruise ships that go to Split, Croatia. I'm sure there are. Definitely are. My son is from Antalya, Turkey. Do you have any must-dos for him? My son is in Antalya. So I haven't been in Antalya since, I don't know, 2000. I used to go there a lot in the military. That's a popular place for Navy ships to pull into. So I don't have a whole lot of recommendations for him. I do remember I went on like a whitewater rafting trip somewhere around there, and it was amazing. But I mean, that was in like 1999, so super long time ago. I mean, the best thing about Antalya is the beautiful water. It has some of the most crystal clear water in the world there. It's beautiful. You're in 50 feet of water. You can see the bottom of the bay there. So just tell them to go and check out the beaches and enjoy the sun and the food, like the amazing, Middle Eastern / Mediterranean food that you get in Antalya. And if you love seafood, he's going to love it there. Kiki says, I'm a military brat, grew up all over the US, so I've seen good places and some really bad ones. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So a job on the St. Louis Tourism Board is not in your future. I would love for St. Louis to turn around. I love St. Louis. It's my home city. I have a huge connection with it. And there's some great neighborhoods there. Like, I love the Central West End. I could live there. I would feel safe there. But a lot of St. Louis is unfortunately not a safe place to walk around in at night. It just isn't. Do you have a least favorite place outside of the U.S.? A least favorite place outside of the United States. I'm trying to think of somewhere I went and I was like, I don't really like this place. Like, a lot of people love Cape Town, South Africa, and I thought it was nice and there's some amazing hikes there, but I wasn't like super thrilled being there. It's kind of unsafe, can be unsafe, and so I felt a little bit uncomfortable there. And I'm not bashing it. I have friends that love it there, that have become full-time expats there and relocated there, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. It's beautiful though. I mean, it's beautiful. You can see penguins right on the beach. It's pretty cool. If you're into penguins, like, you can go to the beach and there'll be hundreds of penguins. And it looks really good in video, but I don't know if you've ever been around a penguin colony, but it is one of the worst odors you will ever smell in your life. So it's really cool seeing the penguins, but it'll make you sick to your stomach. So, did you start basic training in 1989? No, I'm not that old. I went to basic training in 1994. I was in the Navy from 1994 until 2014. Actually 2000, that's not true, till 2015. I got out in April of 2015 was my last official day in the US Navy, so till 2015. So 1994 until 2015, because I did a little bit over 20 years. Have I ever been to New Zealand? I've been to New Zealand once on a Navy ship, but only for 3 days, and I had duty one of the days, so really only 2 days. So I need to go back. I need to go back to New Zealand. I was supposed to on a cruise ship and had some health issues that I had to go take care of. There are penguins in Africa, yeah. In Cape Town, South Africa, there's a huge penguin colony there. I mean, it comes up to, if you ever look at like where Cape Town is, like Antarctica is right below it. Like, so there's a colony that swims back and forth from Cape Town area down to Antarctica, back in, like, migrates with the weather, I guess. And yeah, there are penguins in Africa. I have a bunch of videos of penguins. I don't know if it's I'm sure it's in some of my old videos, videos from Africa. But yeah, I still have a bunch of videos of penguins on my phone back when I took those. Looks like I'm all caught up on questions. So if you have any questions, throw them out there. We still have 82 people in here, which is great. If you haven't smashed that thumbs up, we're almost at 100. I'd appreciate it. And throw your question out there, and I'll jump in there and answer it. For those just joining, if you go back to the beginning of this video, you'll kind of get my definition of what the difference between an expat and a nomad is. I always struggle with what to call myself. I basically have settled on global expat, which I think is kind of a mix of a nomad and an expat. I tend to stay in a place a little bit longer now, 2 to 3 months. And yeah. Kiki says, I hope to see you on the road in 2025. That would be amazing. I have severe problems with my teeth and need to get several implants, probably bone grafting. I would love to hear what you think of your doc. Would be a good fit for that work. She might be, but if not, she can find you someone who would be Christian. I loved my doctor. I loved the experience. I actually had a bone graft done too, by the way. I didn't really talk about it in my videos because it wasn't really associated with the dental work I had done. But I had a wisdom tooth taken out at the end of my Navy career, by the way. I was almost 40, and they took out a wisdom tooth because I had a cyst underneath it that was growing and starting to eat my jawbone. So they had to take, I had my bottom wisdom teeth I still have one wisdom tooth, by the way. My top ones were taken out in boot camp, but my bottom ones weren't impacting my teeth, so they didn't take them out. But they eventually had to go in and take that one out because of a cyst. And they did, and they told me that in the future I could have like a cavity in there that would need to be filled. Not a cavity like a cavity in your teeth, like a hole in there. And so I did, and that hole grows over time and bacteria forms in there and all kinds of bad stuff can happen. So when I went and got my teeth done and they did an x-ray, I had a cavity. So what they did was they filled it with a bone graft. And so I actually had a bone graft done. It wasn't done by the dentist that did all my cosmetic dentist work. It was done by, I think it's called a periodontist, and she's the one that did that. So I had multiple dentists. I had 3 total dentists. I had a dentist that did my root canal. I had the dentist that did the bone graft stuff that I needed done, and then I had a dentist that did my cosmetic dentistry, my veneers and my crowns, which was 90%, 95% of what I had done. I had 1 root canal done, and then I had that bone graft done, which I didn't really talk about because it wasn't associated with the cosmetic dentistry. It was something I needed on the side. that I knew I was going to need. And if you want to know, that cost me $800. If you want to know, all of it cost me $800. The prep for it, the cost of the bone graft that they put in there, and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, that dental clinic could be a good fit for you. You can explain to them what is wrong with you, and if you have a pano X-ray, you can send it to them. I didn't have one. I just sent them pictures of my teeth, and they kind of gave me an estimate. Then to revise that estimate once I got there, it actually was a little bit less than I thought it was going to be, because I was a candidate for some veneers and not just crowns, which veneers are cheaper, if you don't know, because crowns are like full teeth. Crowns are basically whole teeth that they put over your tooth, where a veneer is just on the front of your teeth. The back of your teeth is still your teeth. And that feels the most natural, actually. If you can get veneers, that's what you want. Crowns feel a little less natural, especially in the beginning. You get used to them, but they feel a little bit less natural, where veneers just feel like your teeth because it's just a thin layer covering your teeth. So, yeah. But I know they do all that stuff there. They do dental implants. They do the like false teeth that like are permanently connected in, and they do false teeth as well. They do all that stuff there. How long did it take you to get an appointment with your dentist? I should be in Bangkok next week. Well, I mean, send them an email right away. I think you can get an appointment right away, but I had contacted them like 3 or 4 months in advance because I knew I wanted a lot of work. I wanted a complete cosmetic restoration. I wanted a full smile. I didn't know exactly what that was going to detail. I thought maybe it'll be all veneers, maybe it'll be some crowns, maybe it'll be some implants. I seriously thought I was going to need an implant because I had a tooth that had been cracked a long time ago really bad, but I ended up not needing an implant. But yeah, yeah, send them an email, D, and they get back to you right away. What were the health issues that you had to deal with at home? So I talk about this a lot in other videos, but I had prostate cancer, very minor. I was very lucky, and I had to go through treatment for that. And I also had to go home to help. My mother had some medical stuff that I had to go home and help with. So there were 2 periods over. I've been traveling full time since 2019, but there were 2 periods where I was in the United States for over 6 months that didn't involve traveling. One time it was when I was dealing with my own health issues, and the other time was helping my mother. I just discovered your cruise videos. Love your channel. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, my cruise videos are getting very popular again, which is awesome because it keeps the income I earn from the channel up, which is amazing. I love it. After Thailand, Cambodia, back to Thailand, and then Vietnam. Looking forward to 3 months in KLL next summer. Wish I already knew what you know. Any advice? I mean, you'd have to ask me specific questions. I mean, I'm not sure if you're asking me about KL or you're asking me about traveling. I would say watch my video about how to find Airbnb so you end up with a good Airbnb. This Airbnb actually was a little bit of a pain in the rear end, and that happens sometimes. It doesn't happen very often if you know what you're doing, but this one was kind of a pain in the ass. So this isn't the original Airbnb I booked. Actually, the original one had even better windows than this. It was, you see how there's 2 panes of windows? The other one, it was actually a higher ceiling with 3 panes of windows. So it was even more windows, like, I mean, just tons of windows. This is still cool, though, don't get me wrong. Same view, but more windows. And the owner, so I booked my Airbnb through a superhost that had a good reputation, but they were a management agency that managed a bunch of different Airbnbs. And the owner of that Airbnb decided to take his Airbnb back because he wanted to live in it. And so they had to find me a new Airbnb. They didn't have any with the 3 pane windows in this building that I wanted to be in. This building is called In City. I wanted to be in this building. It's like kind of a live, work, play type of community, like the one I was in Bangkok, although not as cool. It's cool, but it's not even close to as cool as True Digital Park. And I do like this area, and it's very convenient, but I probably wouldn't come back here again. It's kind of, I don't know. It's not as neighborhood feeling, or I don't know. I don't like it as much as I like True Digital Park, or what I think I'm gonna like about Bonifacio Global City, BGC, which is my next spot. It's okay. But with this Airbnb, they couldn't get me one of those. So I was like, okay. So they sent me like 4 options and I chose this one. When I first got here, the hot water didn't work. And I was like, ugh, I know these are first world problems, right? And it took them like 3 days to figure out how to fix the hot water. So it was kind of a pain in the butt. But now everything's good. It's a great Airbnb. It's actually bigger than the one I would have been in. It's got nice decorations. It's still got a beautiful view of this lake over here in Park that I walk in every morning. The building has a Burger King in the building, has 3 7-Elevens in this building. There are 3. There's one where I don't even have to leave the building, and then 2 on the outside of the building. Literally, there's a 7-Eleven 50 feet away from the 7-Eleven. And then there's a full service grocery store here that's kind of like a Whole Foods. They also have a sushi restaurant inside there. Then there's like a Middle Eastern restaurant. There's a Burger King, which I mentioned, which I don't even have to leave the building for. It's in my building. If I want Burger King, I want a hamburger. I really like the curly fries there, so I usually just get some curly fries. And there's multiple restaurants in this building. Multiple different ones. I haven't tried them all yet. The Middle Eastern restaurant that's in this building is amazing. It's phenomenal. But yeah, the building is cool, but it's like there's a highway right here, and it's not very walkable outside of the building complex. It's actually kind of a pain in the butt for me to get to that park, which looks really close. Because this highway's right here, and they have barriers up, and it's kind of a pain in the rear end to get over to that park. So I would like to be in a more walkable area. Christian says most dentists won't even touch me or even do cleanings for me. I feel helpless. Yeah, I mean, Christian, maybe it's something you can get in there and they can give you all the options of what they can do for you. I mean, I had some pretty beat up teeth in the back, especially. I mean, I didn't have any cavities, but most of my fillings were from 1995 or 96 when I was in the military. And, they had to remove those. And, so there was a lot of stuff like that. My front teeth were worn down really bad because I have an overbite and my teeth touched each other. So it had worn down my teeth really thin in the front, these front teeth. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they can help you out, man. I feel really bad for you. I had 4 wisdom teeth pulled at age 28. I managed without a lot of pain. Thank goodness, that's good. Have your van life videos finally died down? Some of them are still doing well. A few of them, like my van tours, always do well because people still buy Winnebago Travados, so they find I have a tour that shows the difference between a K and an L, so that one gets watched a lot. So yeah, my van life videos still are doing well, but the ones that are generating the most income for me right now are my cruise videos are doing really, really well. So the cruise lines must be advertising like crazy right now. What's going to be for breakfast? Well, it's already 10:30 here, so I don't know. I actually bought some American cereal. I have some, what's it called? Cinnamon Toast Crunch, which cost me like $8. But I was like, I feel like some Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So I bought some Cinnamon Toast Crunch, so I have that. Maybe I'll eat that this morning. All right, I'm all caught up on questions. If you got any more, throw them out there. I'll probably stay on here another 5-10 minutes more. If you guys have any questions. If you're just joining me, I'm in Malaysia. I've been here for over a month now. Just had my birthday yesterday. Turned 49, my last year of my 40s. I'm super excited about it. So I'm super excited about turning 50. Like every decade I've lived has actually been better than the next. Like as far as the life I've lived, I've always found it more enjoyable. And I'm hoping it continues. I'm hoping my 50s are even more enjoyable than my 40s were. What ship is your favorite? So that's another hard thing. It just depends on my mood. I really like the Enchanted Princess. I was on that one with my mother. It's kind of like the Sky Princess, but even better. But Ruby is an older ship. I like that one. I really like Island Princess. Some people don't. But the thing I like about Island Princess, which is a smaller cruise ship, is that it can get to places that the bigger cruise ships can't. You can go through the old locks in the Panama Canal. You can go to these tiny little towns that are, 30 miles into a fjord that the big cruise ships can't go to in Norway or Iceland. And like Sadie's Fjord, which is an amazing little place, a little town. Like when you walk off the cruise ship, there's this huge waterfall right in front of you. It's amazing. It's beautiful there. But yeah, so I wouldn't say I necessarily have a favorite ship, but I do like the older, smaller ones. But I do enjoy the huge, giant ones too. I just mentioned Enchanted Princess. I love the track on the top of the ship. I love the huge buffets that it has. The great coffee shops. I loved being on MSC Seaside in Meraviglia. They're beautiful inside. I liked Royal Caribbean ships. I loved Norwegian as a solo traveler. There's so much fun you can have on a Norwegian cruise ship if you're a solo traveler. So yeah, it's not really about the ships. It's about the ships for me, but not a specific ship. The ship I've spent the most time on is Ruby Princess, and so I love that ship just for that fact. But yeah, it's hard for me to say which one I like better. What's the name of the Airbnb you're in there? The name of the building is called M City, and there's multiple different towers here. Some of them are nicer than others because they're like permanent residents, but some of them are more transient, like the one I'm in, which I didn't realize. I would rather be in one of the more permanent ones staying in an Airbnb than in this transient one. It's still nice, but I think it would be better to be over there. I heard the units are fancier. But yeah, it's called M City. That's what it's called. But yeah, I like it. I like the building, and if it wasn't for that highway right there in front of the building that kind of prevents me from walking to that really easily, then I think I would really like it here. But it's a pain in the butt to get over to that park. And my number one thing now is walkability. I want walkability. I want everything at my fingertips. I want to be able to walk out my door and have great restaurants. I want to be able to go to the grocery store in less than 2 minutes. And I want to have entertainment. I want to be able to walk into a mall and go watch a movie like I went and watched Deadpool and Wolverine at my other Airbnb over here. It was a couple blocks away. I went into the movie theater in the middle of the day, like noon or something, in the middle of the week, and walked into the movies and watched Wolverine and Deadpool, which wasn't that great, but it was still nice to be able to do. Like I want to go see Beetlejuice 2, which I know is in the theaters right now. I might save that for the Philippines to go watch that, but because it's not walkable from here, I'd have to take a cab or something. But yeah, walkability nowadays is my number one thing. In your 50s, you get your SRRV visa, which is what you're talking about, which is, for those who don't know, that's the visa I can get as a retired military member in the Philippines, which is a very affordable visa a special long-term visa. They have it for normal retirees as well, but they have a special category for US military retirees. And so I'm excited to get that. It's very affordable. And so then I'll have 2 long-term visas in countries. I'll have my Thai Elite visa, and I will have my one in the Philippines. Hopefully I can figure out a way to get one in Europe, because I'd really like to have a long-term visa in Europe. Someone said the Panama Canal live streams feel like forever ago. Yeah, they weren't that long ago, though. I can't remember what month they were in, but it's probably like only 6 months ago. It wasn't that long ago. Where can I find videos about health insurance and life story? Your stories are really interesting. So as far as health insurance, I'm a bad person to use because I'm retired military, so I have TriCare for life. I did 20 years in the US military. I also have the VA, which I don't really use. I've never used it, but I have access to that if I need it. But I just use TriCare. And while I'm traveling, because I'm a short-term traveler, I travel with my Visa card, my Chase Sapphire Reserve credit card, which has great travel insurance. So if I ever needed it, I would just use that. But usually, medical treatment in foreign countries is super cheap. So I just pay out of my pocket. When I say super cheap, I mean super cheap, like pennies. So it's not that expensive, like a couple dollars for something. So I just usually just pay out of my pocket. I don't even claim it. But if you go watch Global Grounded Life Finances, Grounded Life Travel, they have great videos on that. And they're a better resource from that. If you want to know more of my story, like just go back and watch my videos and you'll see all kinds of things. I'll give you a Cliff Notes version. I spent 20 years in the US military, a little bit over 20 years, the US Navy. I was kind of nomadic then. I traveled all the time. I was single most of the time, so I always volunteered for overseas duty assignments and deployments and things like that. So I was pretty nomadic for 20 years. I retired. I always wanted to go to law school. I went to law school at Georgetown in DC. After that, I became a corporate lawyer in New York, did that for a little bit, decided I missed nomadic lifestyle. I didn't realize how much I had come accustomed to it. And so I left my job in 2019 before the pandemic and started traveling full time. I traveled a bunch of different ways. I traveled in a group program called Remote Year for a year, living in a different country every 30 days. And then COVID hit, I bought an RV, I traveled around the United States. And then I was able to travel outside of the country. I went to Thailand, bought a motorbike throughout Thailand, and then did that for a year. Then last year I lived on nothing but cruise ships. And this year I'm kind of country hopping, living in a different country every 2 to 3 months. And I don't know what I'm going to do next, maybe a combination of all that stuff. Do you still gamble on cruises? If they give me free play, I still gamble, but that's the only thing I really gamble. And I usually gamble what I have left of my onboard credit at the end. And that's kept me in the system, the free cruise system. So I'm still in it. I can still get free cruises, which is crazy. At some point, they got to kick me out of that, I'm sure, because I don't lose enough money. What cruise line is best for solo travelers? Ramona, that depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about cost, I would say probably MSC, Princess. If you're talking about like the solo cruise experience, I would say Norwegian for sure. It's the best. Yeah, just depends on what you're looking for. Someone said go watch Joker. Yeah, I definitely want to see the Joker. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is an amazing actor and transforms himself for his different roles, and I'm sure he did for that role. I saw Beetlejuice at AT in Fort Sam Houston, so much fun. The new Beetlejuice, the second one? Oh no, you say you're going to see the second one. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the first Beetlejuice is iconic. So I love that they have all the original cast in it as well. That's awesome that they were able to do that. Sometimes you don't get that, especially when a sequel is done so many years later. Like, I was so disappointed that the Top Gun sequel didn't have, you know, Charlie in it, his original love interest. Because that just makes that whole movie, the original, like, what was the point of it? Like, the whole point of the movie was this love interest. Like, I get it, you know, he wanted younger, beautiful actresses in it, but I think it would have been more realistic that a career military guy had his career military wife and should have found a way to bring her back into it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it's pretty cool how Beetlejuice, they were able to basically bring back the whole original cast. I mean, obviously they added a new character to it, the daughter of the original, of Winona Ryder's character, but it seems really cool. But yeah, someone put the cruise plum link out there. Yeah, use the Cruise Plum Inc. That link if you're looking for affordable solo cruises. The Cruise Plum allows you to search by solo price, and they show you the actual solo price of the cruise. So it makes it really easy to look for stuff. Hey, James Britt's in the house. What's going on? Thanks for the happy birthday. For those who don't know, I'm 49. I turned 49 yesterday. So my last year of my 40s. I'm excited about it. To me, age is just a number. It's not something I dwell on or anything like that. But it is kind of like one of those. 50 is one of those monumental things. I'm super thankful to make it that far. You know, a lot of people haven't made it that far, so I feel really fortunate. Any fan fiction coming out soon? Maybe a new plot twist. That'd be fun. I love fan fiction. Why did I name my channel 30 and a Wake Up? It's a question I get a lot, and I almost changed my name a couple times because it can be confusing. People are always like, "Damn, you look old for 30." And that's one of the #1 comments I get about that name. Like, "Damn, this guy looks old for 30." So I was in the military for over 20 years, as I mentioned, and when you would go on a military deployment, you know, you'd be gone for 6 months, 9 months, 11 months, and you'd have a countdown for when you return. So let's say you were going to be gone for 180 days. You would say I have 179 days and a wake up, you know, then 178 days and a wake up, then, you know, 29 days and a wake up, 10 days and a wake up. That's how we always would count it, So when I first started traveling, my plan was to live in a different country every 30 days. So every 30 days I would be waking up somewhere new. And that's originally how I was traveling if you watched the beginning of my channel. Before COVID hit and kind of forced me not to be able to travel that way. That's what I was doing. I was living in a different country every 30 days. So that's the genesis of the name. It kind of combined my military travel and my civilian travel, and that's what the term 30 and a wake up means. It means traveling, living somewhere 30 days and then waking up somewhere new, which I guess I'm kind of doing now. I stayed in an Airbnb for 30 days, and then I woke up and now I'm in a new Airbnb with this amazing lake view here and city skyline view of Kuala Lumpur, although that's not the main city skyline. The main one has the tower that looks kind of like the Space Needle in Seattle, but also the Padrones Towers. So this isn't the main Kuala Lumpur skyline, but still the skyline nonetheless. But yeah, that's where my name came from. I think that's a good spot to end this live stream, talking about my name, coming full circle. I appreciate everyone joining me here on this Saturday for most of you, which is abnormal. Usually I do this on Sundays, but I'm a huge football fan, and the Rams play at the same time I would normally do that live stream. So I'm going to watch the Rams tomorrow morning, my time, instead of doing a live stream. So I appreciate all of you that joined this live stream at this awkward time. And thank you all for all the happy birthdays and all that kind of stuff. I appreciate it. So thanks for tuning in. See you next video.